Hey everyone, the name is Kris Barocsi. Welcome to Gear Corner. It's time to experience one of the finest pieces of guitar gear that ever appeared on this channel. It's the Tube Workshop 2864S combo. Short housekeeping before we get into the details of this really cool amp. First of all, of course, subscribe to the channel in case you enjoy what you're seeing here. Hit the notification bell so that you don't miss future episodes. And check out the description box under the video. If you open it up, you'll find all kinds of additional infos, my signal chain, gear links, timestamps, and of course, a link to Tube Workshop. So what is this amp? I have so much to talk about, and I'm really excited about some details. You'll know why. Even though it's such a simple amp, really. It's a 14-watt amp, a tube amp, of course, point-to-point wiring. So it's the most stable, most reliable, simplest signal chain kind of wiring, really. It's made to sound awesome on its own, have a usable volume for stages, so you can actually crank the amp and still don't get fired in every band. and it has some tricks like the master volume, which is also called the Wonder volume. The name is 2864S. It's not the most, I don't know, catchy names ever, but it has a very good reason. This amp is not another take on a Marshall, another take on a Fender, a Dumble, a high watt, whatever, you name it. It's not like that. This amp is based on a 40s Philips HiFi or stereo amplifier. Mario is the name of the guy behind the brand. He is Mr. TWS or Tube Workshop, and he used to work for Beyerdynamic, the headphone brand. You know it, I'm sure. It's, you know, it's a big brand, and he used to do a lot of things. For example, being a chief developer, like product developer, and he knows a lot about electronics, obviously. And during the pandemic, he bought a couple of like really old tube amps, whatever it was, like an old Vox amp or an old French railway station like PA amplifier, or Philips, late 40s Philips 2864, which was not a guitar amplifier. It was actually sort of on all kinds of, consumer amplifier, like a HiFi or a stereo, whatever you want to call it, back in the 40s. He fixed it and tried it out for a guitar, and he was like, wow. He's a guitar player as well, plays in a Pink Floyd tribute band, and he wanted a really cool amp for himself as well, like something that he can actually use, and that's where this model, the 2864S, was coming from. All right, let's talk about the specs and the details of this amp. This is a combo, obviously. There's a head version as well, and this one comes with a greenback. That's like the stock speaker, a 12-inch Selection greenback, which I love, to be honest. But they also offer a couple of other speaker options, and if you want something very specific, I'm pretty sure you can talk with them and put that in the combo. But honestly, as you can tell, this sounds amazing. All right, let's talk about the knobs and the design of the amp. How is it supposed to be used? It's a very simple amp, which can be used on its own, but it also reacts perfectly to pedals, which is what they also write on the website, that it's like a pedal platform amp. But honestly, it's a bit more, because it's not like a very flat sounding something that allows you to put any kind of a flavor in front of it with pedals and effects and everything. This does have a very unique own tone, which sounds very organic and has a recognizable kind of clipping, which is super sweet. If you want this amp to be a non-master volume type of super simple design, then you can just literally turn the master up. As soon as it's all the way to the right, it's maxed out, the circuit does not see this knob. It's not existing anymore. Now it also says Wonder Volume. What is that even? You know, this issue that most tube amps have, like you have them on 1 out of 10, they will sound very dull. There's no real bass response happening, or it's just too presence heavy if it's like a bright cap kind of situation, like on Fender amps sometimes. But this is a super clever design. If you have it maxed, it's flat. That's where the knob doesn't exist for the amplifier. If you go back, it gradually increases the high and low response to give you this loudness kind of effect that you have on like, or you had on older like HiFi amps, which is a very clever little feature. Our ears don't hear in a linear way. So if something is quiet, we tend to miss some presence and some low end. As soon as you turn that same signal up, whether it's a guitar amp or a hi-fi, whatever it is, you do not want that much treble and bass anymore, because it's gonna be too boomy and just too harsh and will hurt your ear. So that's where you don't want that. This will gradually increase this loudness effect as you go down, which is super clever. If you're at home and you cannot crank your amp, you still have that bigness, that kind of vibe that you have when you crank it on stage or in the rehearsal room. So to show you how this works and what kind of effect it has, I will play the amp on different volumes, and I will not compensate for the volume loss. Listen to the impression that you have, even though if I turn it down, it will be much quieter. Just listen to the EQ, which will not change at all. Then the bass knob. The bass knob only has 3 notches. 1, 2, and 3. What's really interesting is that the bass sits before all the clipping happens. So if you feel like you play a really loud guitar or like an overdrive that has a lot of low end and it would become muddy through the amp, you can actually dial out a lot of that mud if you go back to 1, because this takes away that crazy low end before the amp starts to clip. And then the treble, which is the opposite of the bass knob, this sits right at the end of the circuit. my impressions. The 2864S is what a high quality, perfect, no compromise kind of amp should be. It's not a one-trick pony. It's not like, oh, it's awesome for Rolling Stones or some sort of a blues tone, but you cannot really use it for anything else. It really does sound very versatile. You definitely hear the guitar. If you play through an amp like this, it's the opposite of a very much compressing, super complex high gain amp where you can literally just swap guitars and don't really hear a difference. This is the exact opposite of that. This shows everything, like whichever pedal you plug in front of it, whichever guitar you have. Then I really like those little tricks that make so much sense. For example, putting the bass knob right at the beginning before any clipping happens. That controls the low end perfectly and should be on every amp, if I'm honest, because it's so effective. And then, of course, the Wonder Volume, the master knob, which is just so ideal. It makes the amp versatile. With that loudness effect, like you turn it down, it still sounds full. Is there anything I could criticize about the 2864S? Not really. Honestly, not really. I mean, the name is not sexy. It's not a great name, but it has a really cool story behind it. So that explains everything. So I'm perfectly fine with that name. The looks, I find it really pretty, but I didn't fall in love with this, how it looks. But I'm pretty sure they offer like different grills, because this looks close to like a Fender combo grill. The top looks more like a matchless in a way. I'm pretty sure you can order this. Like I would love this with like a Vox style grill. Something like that. You know, I would probably be a bit more picky with the way it looks if it was my custom order. All right, guys, take it easy. Meet you down there in the comments. Let me know what you think about the 2864S. And yeah, see you next week in a new video. Bye. Bye.